A United States education is your gateway
to a great American campus experience,
to study in a country of innovators and entrepreneurs,
to use your curiosity wisely,
to take on challenges,
to think differently,
to have endless opportunities,
to hear new perspectives,
to navigate cultural differences,
to pursue your passions,
to gain real-world experiences,
to learn skills for a changing job market,
to put theory into practice,
to become the kind of professional you want to be,
to thrive in your career,
to give back to your community and to the world,
to be the kind of person that you wouldn't have dreamed to be otherwise.
Come study.
Come study.
Come study.
Come study in the United States.
Hello everyone, welcome to Education USA session about Education USA in the United States. I'm Sevin Hüseyinova, Education USA consultant, and today we'll be talking about application essentials, US colleges. And we have a guest speaker from the Temple University who is Senior International Admissions Counselor, Mrs. Katherine. She will be giving you information about the topic and also will give some information about the Temple University. You will get in you will also get information how to walk through the website, what admission officers think when they review the application from the undergraduate students. And if you have any questions, please leave your questions in the comment part. We'll be happy to respond them at the end of presentation. And just for your information, the webinar is live streamed and will be saved on the Education USA social media accounts on YouTube channel. So if you want to receive the link of the V-course and watch it, you can fill out the survey, which will be shared at the end of presentation, or you can reach out to us through the Telegram group or social media and ask for the link, and we'll be happy to share with you the link. Now I will give the word to Katherine. Thank you very much again for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning from Philadelphia, and good evening and good afternoon to all of you Zooming in from other parts of the globe. If you feel comfortable, feel free to put in the chat where you're Zooming in from. I would love to see. I'm very excited to speak with you today and to provide you with some more insight and knowledge about applying to U.S. colleges and universities. We're going to look very closely at different parts of the application and highlight kind of what counselors are really looking for when they're looking at your application. So this presentation will probably be about 30 minutes. Feel free to write your questions in the chat. I may try to get to them as I'm speaking, but if I don't, we will have time at the end of the presentation to go over any questions you may have. So let's get started. So this is just going to provide a little bit of an overview of the items that we're going to be talking about today. We're first going to cover the application, and then we're going to discuss the transcripts, test scores, letter of recommendations, and then throughout the presentation, I'm going to provide you with a few general tips and things to consider so that you feel more confident when ready to apply when you go to submit your application. So let's get started. I thought I'd start with a question. Does anybody know what the 3 requirements of a college application might be? You can feel free to put it into the chat. Well, it's okay if you're not sure. That's what we're here for. So today, the 3 requirements typically of a college application are going to be your transcripts. There might be some standardized test scores, and there's also going to be letters of recommendations. So let's first start talking about the application. Ideally, when do you think you should start filling out your college applications? Do you think it should be 1, when you graduate from high school, or 2, the summer between your junior and senior year of high school? Well, if you guessed answer 2, then this would be correct. This will give you enough time to fill out your application, and you can start requesting transcripts from your counselor if they're open during those summer months. And it'll also allow you some time to apply for those early action and early decision deadlines, which will enable you to get your admissions decisions earlier. It'll also be nice because you can focus more during the school year on your doing well on your classes and keeping up your grades. However, you can also apply after you graduate from high school as well. It's been it's a lot more common now for students to also take gap years, which is also okay. If you do decide to take a gap year, do know that sometimes universities or colleges may request that you also submit a gap year statement, just so we can see what you have been doing during your gap year, because I know a lot of students go off to do a lot of great things during that year between high school and university. All right. So let's get into the application. There are many different types of applications. There are online applications, there are school-specific applications, paper applications still, as well as the common application. We will speak a little bit more on the common application later on, but just so that you know, in general, it's one application you can use to apply to multiple universities. Some information that you may want to have on hand before you start your application are listed here. Biographical information, demographics, family information, education, and your extracurricular activities. When you're filling out your biographical information, make sure that the mailing address and email address that you use are ones that you check frequently, because these are the ones that the counselors are going to use to communicate with you. They're going to be the ones that they'll submit your I-20 to. So do make sure that you are able to check those frequently, and that the post can also come to that mailing address. Additionally, if you have an email address, do make sure that the handle is an appropriate email address. Again, as counselors will see that as they are communicating with you about the status of your application. For education, sometimes applications may ask you to fill in your grades on the actual application. Try to be as accurate as possible, but do know that you'll also be submitting your transcript, so counselors will have the official version on hand, and that's what they're going to use when they're reviewing your application for your program. For your extracurricular activities, this is really important to put down, especially if the school or college you're applying to does a holistic review of the application. Because they're going to be looking at everything, and they typically like to see a very well-rounded student. So if you have participated in any athletic clubs, or if you have participated in any organizations on your campus like student council, or have done Model UN, please do write those things down. Especially if you've taken leadership positions, if you've been a president of a club or a treasurer of a club, we really like to see students who have taken those leadership positions. In addition to that as well, a lot of times it's quality is prized over quantity. So, if you've done some activity for a very long time, so for example, maybe you've been in student council for 4 years, and we've seen you've taken different leadership positions, that may seem better than if you've done something for, just a week your freshman year, your 9th grade year, and maybe just a week your junior year. And, so a lot of times the quality of the activity that you've participated in may be viewed higher than just doing a bunch of things. With that being said, there are students who have, also been part of a lot of different clubs and organizations for a very long duration of time too. So just be sure that you're putting those in there. Again, some applications may also require essays. This specific presentation isn't going to go into depth about how to write a personal statement, but just a few notes. Just make sure that you're answering the specific question that is being asked. We do like to see students, when we request an essay, that they're authentic. A lot of times, what we're looking for is something that can't be, gleaned from reviewing a transcript. So we're really trying to get to know you better as a person, as a student, what motivates you, your background. So just make sure that you're just being authentic to who you are, and also just be sure to double check your grammar as well. For some might also request test score information. Again, similar to what I mentioned for education, put down and be as accurate as possible your test scores. But again, we will be receiving the official test results if you are submitting tests, and we'll be able to verify those as well. And one last thing about applications. Typically, application fee ranges from about $50 to $90. It could be more or less, but that tends to be the average range. If you feel that you qualify for a fee waiver, do be sure to reach out to the university. Each college and university has their own policy regarding that, and may be able to offer you a fee waiver as well. Next slide. Okay, so what is the Common App? We were talking about that earlier. The Common Application is an online application that will allow you to enter your general information just one time, and then you can use that application to apply to multiple universities. Now, each university and college will have separate questions in addition to the general information, but it's a good place to be able to keep track of all of different applications you're submitting. So now we're just going to watch a quick little video from the Common App explaining more about what the Common Application is.
For many students, applying to college is the first step in a journey towards a better future. Common App is an online application that makes applying to college easy. Through a single platform, students can manage applications to multiple schools, request letters of recommendation, and connect to additional resources, including financial aid and scholarships, once they've submitted. Here's how it works. After creating your account, adding a college is a great place to start. Common App members include more than 900 colleges and universities around the world. So there's a good chance you'll find a college that's right for you. You can search for a specific college or use specific criteria to explore colleges based on your needs and interests. Once you've added colleges to your list, the dashboard can help you stay organized. Here you can sort your college list by application deadline and view requirements details for each school. You can also see the status of different parts of your applications and each college's writing requirements. The application itself is made up of two parts: a set of common questions that go to any school you choose to apply to, and questions that are specific to individual colleges on your list. The common portion of the application, or Common App, helps you tell your unique story to every college you're applying to. Here's where you'll share information about you and your family, your high school and academic history, and any activities you're involved in. This is also where you'll share your personal essay. Under the My Colleges tab, you'll find specific questions and requirements for each college on your list. Every college is different, so it's important you pay close attention to what they may require in addition to the common portion of your application. Some colleges may ask for additional essays, while others may have specific requirements for submitting test scores or letters of recommendation. Be sure to check each college's information, as their policies may change from year to year. Once you've completed all the required questions in both sections, you're ready to submit your application. It's that simple. Congratulations! You've taken the first step towards your future by thinking about applying to college. Don't forget, Common App is here to support you along the way. You can find help at any time by visiting commonapp.org/help.
So I hope that helped to shed a little bit more information on the Common Application and just how easy it is to use. And it's a great way to apply to multiple universities worldwide. Great. So now that we've kind of talked about the application portion, I thought we could move on to learning a little bit more about the transcript. So I thought I'd start again with another question. Which classes below do you think colleges do not consider when looking at your high school grades? 1, mathematics, or 2, physical education or gym? Well, if you guessed 2, you would be correct. So counselors are going to spend a lot more time looking at the grades you received in your main subject courses, such as math, rather than your physical education classes. So the transcript is arguably one of the most important aspects of your application. So here is a video from another admissions counselor explaining some of the reasons why.
When it comes to college admissions, there are basically 2 different ways that colleges will evaluate applicants. They'll either use a numeric review process, which looks exclusively at the numbers, your grades, your courses, your testing, or they'll use a holistic review process, which takes into account the whole student. And so in addition to grades and courses and testing, we're also going to look at essays, letters of recommendation, extracurricular activities, things of that nature. Now, in both cases, the most important piece of the application is going to be the student transcript. The transcript tells me a student's academic performance through their grades. It gives me a sense of the rigor of their coursework, whether they're taking honors or AP classes. And that's the best predictor for student success at the college level, right? How they've done academically within their high school classes. And I think students should feel good about this because it means that your 4 years of hard work within school are going to be the thing that colleges care about the most. And it's really an incentive for students from 9th grade on forward to prioritize their academics and to take their education really seriously. So focus mostly on the grades and the transcript. That's really the centerpiece of the college application.
So as this admissions counselor states, your transcript is one of the most important aspects of your application. So let's just delve a little bit deeper into what a counselor is looking at when they're looking at your transcript. So let's start off with GPA. You may have seen this on some of the applications you've seen as you've been applying to universities. It stands for grade point average. So in the US, for example, we use a 4.0 grading scale. Here is an example of that here. We understand that many schools' grading systems look different in different countries and may not match the 4.0 grading scale we have here in the US. And that's okay. Counselors are often trained in many different international curriculums, in international credentials, and will read your transcript within the context of your school curriculum. To help a counselor, it's often important that a school profile is provided with your application. This will give a counselor a better idea of how to understand the curriculum and grades at your school. On this screen is an example of what you might see as part of a school profile for their grading scale. So it will show you what the grades are and how they represent. So for example, in the US, we have a 4.0, which is equivalent to about an A, or a 3.0, which is equivalent to a B, or a 2.0, which is equivalent to a C. So that kind of helps us know as we're looking at grades what that is equivalent to. And again, each school is going to be different. Each country is going to be different. And if you don't have a school profile, that is also okay. That's something that if your school has a guidance counselor, they will likely submit with your application. But again, most counselors are trained in international credential review and will be able to review your application accordingly. It is important that if your transcript is not originally in the English language, oftentimes universities in the US will require you to submit your transcript in both the the original language as well as an English translation. If they do require that, it's okay. Typically, if your school submits the English translation, or if not, you will have to go through usually a certified translator in your country. Sometimes if you have an EdUSA office, they can also help show you where that translators may be available. So now that we have a better understanding of grading systems and school profiles, we can take a look at what counselors are actually looking for and looking at when they're reviewing your transcripts. So when they're reviewing your transcripts, they're generally asking classes such as like what classes are they taking, how challenging are the classes that they're taking within the courses offered at their high school, are they taking the most demanding classes, is there an upward trend of grades? So maybe a lot of times when students start their year in high school, their grades may be a little bit lower, but as they, progress throughout high school, the grades will get higher. If there is a dip in the grades, why is there a dip in their grades? Students might explain that in an additional information section of their application, or perhaps a counselor may provide further information as to why the grades have gotten lower. So we're kind of asking all of those kinds of questions as we're looking at your transcript. And we're really looking at the grades, again, as I mentioned earlier, from your main subject courses, such as your language classes, your mathematics classes, science classes, humanities classes. Now, there are going to be some schools that may require certain classes and certain grades for certain subjects, depending on the major that you're interested in applying to. So it's always good to reach out to the counselors at the schools you're interested in, seeing if there are any prerequisites. Some majors may require a certain amount of math courses or science courses, and perhaps even a specific math or science courses, while other universities may be less rigorous and may not have those types of requirements. So it's always good to reach out to the specific school or college that you're interested in looking at applying to. Some universities, or most universities, once you've applied, if you've been admitted and you choose to enroll, then they're going to require that you submit your final transcript as well. So it's always good to make sure that your final year grades stay equal to kind of what your overall grades have been, or if you're in a school system that has predictive grades, to make sure that those predictive grades match up with the grades that you actually receive. Typically, if they don't match, it depends on the reasoning for that and how much they don't match. So it may not matter as much to some institutions. Other institutions could perhaps revoke a scholarship or even deny admissions. It would just depend again on the school or college that you are looking to apply to, and also how much of a difference those grades are for the final year. Great. So I hope that provided some insight onto the transcripts and sort of what we're looking for. I should also mention actually that for some curriculums as well, it's also a good idea for what they're going to require as far as what types of, in addition to the transcripts, are they going to require any specific testing? So for example, different curriculums have different tests. So if you're, for example, in a British curriculum, they may require your O-levels or IGCSE mark sheet results. If you are in an Indian national curriculum, they may require your standard 10 and 12. So just make sure that you reach out to see what specifically the school is requesting when they're asking for a transcript as well, because that might look different for each school and college. Sometimes schools specifically might want your last 3 years of what we call high school, but maybe in your curriculum that 1 year isn't considered high school. So I know for a lot of curriculums, for example, we might ask for what we call the 9th grade year, but maybe your 9th grade is technically in middle school. So you might have to go back to another institution to find that document. So do make sure that you reach out to the schools or college you are interested in to see what exactly it is that they need to qualify as submitting a transcript. It's an important point to make that I did not. Okay, so now let's move on to our standardized test scores. I thought I'd start with another question. Which of the below do you think are English language proficiency test scores? We have A, TOEFL, B, Duolingo, C, IELTS, or D, all of the above.
Students, when we're on the road, we often play a little kind of quiz show game with students, asking what they think is the most important part of the application. Many students respond, well, the testing must be the most important. It's actually one of the less important elements in the file. The testing can give you a sense of what schools are sort of within your range, and it gives the school
I think the video started a little bit early, but those who guessed D would be correct. All of the above are English language test scores. So as just mentioned, you can see here some of the English language test scores and some of the ones, a lot of times universities and US colleges will require that international students submit an English language test score. And so you do need to reach out to them to see which ones they accept. If English is your native language, or if you've been in an English speaking curriculum for a certain period of time, some universities may offer a waiver where you do not have to submit an English language test score. So it is ideal to reach out and just see what the university's policy is that you're applying to regarding that. Some universities may also require that you submit standardized test scores. So two that we have in the US that, if required, they may request are these two, the ACT or SAT test score. These are multiple choice tests that determine college readiness. And so if a school or college you're applying to does require them, then usually you'll have to submit them through the board, and there'll be a specific code for your university that you're applying to. Most students who need to take these tests will typically take them the spring of their junior year or maybe the fall of their senior year. It's important to leave some time to retake the test in case you don't do as well as you would hope. And then also make sure, I know some countries may not have as many testing centers, so you might have to go further away. So just make sure that you plan all of that in case you do need to take the standardized test as well. A lot of schools now, though, are what's called test optional. So you can choose whether or not you would like to submit the standardized test score. And in these cases, then you just I would just recommend reaching out to the universities just to make sure that when they're test optional for admissions, they're also test optional in regards to scholarships as well, because some universities may be test optional in order to be admitted to the university or to be considered for admissions, but they still might use standardized testing for scholarship review. So just make sure that you reach out and confirm that it doesn't affect scholarship as well. There are a lot of universities that are truly test optional, and you don't have to submit the SAT or ACT in order to be admitted or to be considered for their scholarships. So just reach out and ask a counselor about that. If a university does not require you to submit an SAT or ACT test score, then they're likely going to put a lot more weight on your high school transcripts as well. So do take that into consideration. So this is the video you're about to play. This is a former dean of undergraduate admissions at Yale University, and he's answering the question, what is the most important part of the application? So if we could replay that video now, that would be great. Thank you.
Students, when we're on the road, we often play a little kind of quiz show game with students, asking what they think is the most important part of the application. Many students respond, well, the testing must be the most important. It's actually one of the less important elements in the file. The testing can give you a sense of what schools are sort of within your range. And it gives the school a sense of what students in the applicant pool are within their range. The most important part of your application, bar none, no question, any college, is your high school transcript. Probably the next most important are your teacher recommendations, particularly if you're applying to any kind of selective college or university.
So yes, as mentioned, the transcript is very important, but it might have been surprising for some of you to hear that letters of recommendation are also a very important part of the application. So that brings us to our next slide about letters of recommendation. Who do you think can write your letter of recommendation? A recent or current teacher, or B, a parent or guardian? If you guessed A, you would be correct. Typically, for letters of recommendations, counselors like to see one letter of recommendation be an academic letter of recommendation. So someone who can speak to your academic abilities. In most cases, this will be a recent or current teacher, or it may be a high school guidance counselor. So those are the ones that we like to see. You can also submit additional letters of recommendations. We will read them if you submit them, but typically we put more emphasis on those submitted by a current or recent teacher or high school guidance counselor. So here are some tips for requesting a letter of recommendation. The first one is definitely ask early. So you want to give your teacher some time to be able to both write you a letter of recommendation as well as write you a good letter of recommendation. So give them the time to be able to think about it and to be able to, articulate all of your skills that they've seen you do throughout their time teaching you. You're also going to want to ask the right person. So you're going to want to reach out to someone who knows you well and will feel comfortable writing a letter of recommendation for you, and someone who can speak to your strengths as a student. So this might be a teacher you've had for multiple classes. It might be a teacher from your favorite class. It doesn't necessarily need to be the class that you get the best grades in. It's just a teacher who you would feel comfortable writing that letter of recommendation for you. Something that can be really helpful is when you request that a teacher write you a letter of recommendation is to provide them with some detailed information about yourself, as well as the deadlines of when they'll need to submit that information. So for example, you could send a teacher a resume of your accomplishments, maybe remind them of specific work or projects that you're proud of, maybe mention to them any challenges you overcame. You can talk to them about, your hobbies and your plans for college in the future. Or likewise, maybe if you didn't do as well in your class or you had a downward trend of grades, then that teacher can be there to maybe explain perhaps why you had low grades. So all of those things are good so that they can kind of draw on that information while they're writing their letter of recommendation as well. Because likely they're not just writing a letter of recommendation for you, but they might be writing one for a lot of other students. So to have that information on hand would be very helpful for them. Sometimes, depending on what the application is you're using to apply for, you may have the ability to waive your right to view the recommendation letter. Some universities, recommend that you waive your right because it lets the colleges know that you're not trying to read your letters of recommendations, and this in turn sort of reassures colleges that that your recommenders have provided support, that is candid and truthful. So this is just something that some applications may allow you to do. And then you'll also want to follow up with them and make sure that your documents have been submitted. And then after they've been submitted, it's always good practice, to thank your references for supporting your application, and as well keep them updated. I'm sure they would be excited to hear the results of your application as well once you've heard back from the university. So now that we've sort of learned about each part of the application and it's time to apply, this is just sort of a recommendation. You don't have to follow this exactly, but a lot of times it's a good idea to apply to what we call a match school, a reach school, and a safety school. So a match school is a school where your academic background matches the requirements and you're likely to get in. A reach school is your requirements fall lower or below. So maybe their average, GPA is a 4.0 and you are a 3.5. So that might be a reach school for you. And then a safety school is you exceed all of the requirements. So maybe the average is a 3.2 and you have a 4.0. So you will be likely to get into your safety school. None of that is guaranteed, but those are just, it's sort of a general idea. So at least when you apply, you're going to be likely to get into your safety schools and have some place to go when you apply. So this is just something to think about as you're thinking about applying to schools. Just that way you can expect to receive at least one letter, one acceptance letter for the and this is the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is about contacting admissions. It's definitely okay to contact admissions to ask them about, directions that may not be easy or accessible online. Maybe you're confused about something in the application process. Maybe you want to learn more about the updates on the status of your application. That's what we're here for. We love to hear from our applicants. So there's no sort of silly questions. You can reach out to us via email or phone. Do remember, though, that communication is often tracked. So don't be rude. And when we say don't be overly persistent, kind of what we mean is if you've just submitted your application like a minute ago and then you reach out to ask if you have a decision, obviously we're not going to have a decision that quickly. So just remember kind of those little tips. Also take the lead. So, we love when you guys reach out to ask us questions instead of having a family member reach out on your behalf. As well, if a family member does reach out, oftentimes we may not even be able to communicate with them depending on the questions that they're asking. So do make sure that you're reaching out, and the emails, if we're going to initiate a conversation with you, remember that we will be reaching out to the email address that you used on your application. So yeah, I think that's all of the slides I have. So do you guys have any questions that I can answer? Well, I hope that this helped to provide some more insight on how to apply to universities. If you guys do have any additional questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I do have my email on the screen here. Oh, there's a question that came in. Are extracurriculars an important part that counselors look at? That's a really great question. So for schools that do a holistic review, so for example, I'm at Temple University and we do a holistic review, looking at extracurricular activities is important. So please write down all of the extracurriculars you've done. So, if you're part of a school basketball team, or if you're part of student council, or maybe you started a philosophy club at your school, do write that down and be sure to include any information about like leadership positions. So if you have been a treasurer or a secretary or a president of a club, or if you've taken initiative to found a club, do put all of that information in because universities that do holistic reviews really do value that well-rounded student. Here we have, does the translation of documents need to be certified by a notary? That's a great question. So again, each school and college will be different. So do reach out to figure out what their specific rules are. Typically, we will require that documents that have been translated are translated by a certified translator if your school does not provide the service. So great question. We have, could you please explain what the difference between ED, EA, and RD is? So I'm assuming that's early decision, early action, and regular decision. So early decision means when you apply that if you are admitted, then you are going to go to that university specifically, and you've committed to that university. Whereas early action means that you'll apply early, you'll receive your admissions decision early, but you don't necessarily have to go to that university. So a lot of students like to apply early decision or early action because they'll receive their admissions decisions sooner. And so if you receive your admissions decisions sooner, then you can start planning. You can start the, especially at US universities, the I-20 or the visa process, which can be lengthy in some countries. And you can kind of start already sort of know what your academic trajectory is going to look like, and you can start planning to prepare to go to school as well. And also just sort of ease of mind, you can enjoy your senior year a little bit more, although still keep those grades up. And regular decision means that that's the application deadline for all students to apply by. So you will need to get your application in submitted by that date. Also double check as well. Some students also like to apply early because there's also additional scholarship opportunities that students can be considered for, or maybe you need to spend more time on scholarship applications after you've applied to the university. So also double check each institution and kind of see what scholarships are available and when those deadlines are as well. Let's see. Do I need to attach additional diplomas and certificates that I have to application, or just must be mentioned in the motivation letter? By diplomas and certificates, are those for extracurricular activities or are those for your transcripts? If it's for transcripts, then usually there'll be some kind of system by the university to submit the official transcripts. Usually they're submitted by the registrar's office or by a school guidance counselor. And if you're talking about certificates and diplomas for extracurricular activities, typically those can just be sent to the institution. Again, each college and university is going to be different on how they want those or if they want those. So again, you're going to have to reach out specifically. So it's a good question to ask. Next one, how can universities check the truthfulness of our extracurriculars? Should I add proof of my participation in them? That's another great question. So usually in applications, we're going to have access to your guidance counselors or your teachers. A lot of times in those letter of recommendations, they will also be writing about that. So we can always reach out to the school if we have any questions about those. If you have proof of participation, depending on the school or college, you're welcome to submit that. I think somebody was just mentioning about diplomas and certificates. I know at Temple University, for example, you can certainly send any additional certificates regarding your participation in events to our administrator, and she'll attach them to your application. What if I didn't, okay, what if I didn't finish high school, but a vocational school? Am I allowed to use it as my transcript and calculate GPA score? This is something you're going to have to reach out to each school and college. Each school and college will have different admissions requirements and eligibility requirements. So definitely that one you'll have to reach out to ask to see what their policy is on vocational schools and what that looks like. These are all really great questions. Are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any more pop up on the screen. Oh, somebody says there's another question. Someone's asking a question about their specific application. I will send you an email directly regarding your specific application. But it's nice to see you again. I remember meeting you at the event in Tashkent. I see someone says letters of recommendations. I don't see a question with that though. It just says letters. Do you want more information about letters of recommendation? Hello. Yes, it is nice. Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Okay, so for letters of recommendations, I think somebody just wanted a little bit more information about them. So each school and college will have different requirements. Some may not require them at all. Some may require two academic, letters of recommendations. Some might have just 2 letters of recommendation and you can submit whatever you want. I always recommend submitting at least 1 academic letter of recommendation. Even if it's maybe not required, maybe a lot of times they'll still consider it. If you submit it, you can definitely ask just to confirm. But if you have a letter of recommendation from someone who can speak to your academic abilities, that's always really valued because it lets us get to know you better as a student, especially because if we only have the transcript in front of us and we don't have additional information, it's, we can't see maybe your struggles or maybe you got, a lower grade in a class, but a teacher can say, they got this low grade, but they were coming every day after school to try to improve upon it, or so we can get information from a guidance counselor that we can't perhaps see just on a transcript. So it's always good to have at least one that can speak to your academic abilities. Somebody says, how should we fill in tax questions? I was really confused. I'm not quite sure where you were having to fill in tax questions. That sounds like a very specific part of an application. But again, if you have a question on a specific application for a specific university, it's always good to reach out directly to the admissions counselor, and they'll be happy to walk you through that. If it's a lot of times, if you're sending those types of questions, you can also include a screenshot of the specific section that might be confusing to you. So that's always something that you can reach out to do. Can taking courses be considered as an activity? I guess it depends. If it's just your regular school classes, then no, that wouldn't be considered an extracurricular activity. But maybe if you, or I don't know, maybe if you did like a study abroad or something like that, you could include, maybe you did like a 3-week trip somewhere and you took some courses. That could maybe be something that you could include in that section as well. Really great questions, everyone. If SAT and IELTS are optional and you pass those tests, does that mean you have a better chance at getting into that college? If they are optional, then you could reach out to the school or college about, if you should or should not submit them. I can speak to my university when we require, oh, you mean SAT. So okay, so SAT and ACT are different than IELTS. IELTS is the English language proficiency test score. So SAT and ACT, if they're optional, then ask the school or college if it's truly test optional, if it doesn't affect admissions, or if it affects scholarships. So do see like which, if it's do reach out to the individual school and college to see what their policies are. But most of the time, if it's test optional, then it shouldn't matter whether or not you submit the SAT or ACT test score. Generally speaking, if you've done well on it and it reflects you as a student, then I would go ahead and submit it. But for English language test scores like IELTS or TOEFL, usually for those, universities are just checking, your English language proficiency and, if you will be successful at the university. I know at Temple University, we have a conditional admissions program. So if students maybe are academically admissible but don't quite meet our English language proficiency skills or test score requirements, then they can start in our conditional admissions program. So they can improve upon their English language while still gaining college credit. So a lot of times it's just to see, where your English level is at to help you best succeed at our university. We have a school. What about music school diploma and IT programming course diploma? Are you talking about applying to a music school or submitting a music school? I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused by the question. I might need some more information. I hope my answers have been helpful and that I'm providing some useful information and some tips and guidance as you apply for universities. Additional school. So are you asking if you've done additional school work outside of your regular school, if you should submit that? Yes, any sort of academic coursework that you have done, you should submit to a university, which actually brings up another good point. If, for example, you take a gap year and you decide to enroll in a local community college, you will need to submit that transcript as well to the university you're applying to, because you might be considered a transfer applicant, and you might be eligible to have some of those credits transfer. So a university does need to see all of your academic credentials. Yes, you feel free to send me an email. I had my email on the screen. I can also put it into the chat. If you guys have any questions, you are more than welcome to send me that. You're very welcome. Is participation in educational course cannot be counted as an extracurricular activity? If it's, again, I think we kind of covered this. If you have taken additional courses, it depends on the type of educational course. If you're talking about your regular high school classes, then that's already going to be in your transcript, and that would not be considered something extra. If you have participated in sort of, if you've done something that's not related to your high school or your graduation requirements, then we'll need to see that information if you gained any sort of credit for it. If it's just something you did, like if you've done something extra, you can certainly add that into your application so that we can sort of see maybe all the cool things that you're participating in. Great questions, everyone.
Thank you very much, Katherine, for the all information you gave and for responding the questions. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us until the end. I think we will sum up here. And if any questions to Katherine, please feel free to reach out her through her email. And if you're watching us through our YouTube channel, you can always reach out to us and get from us the Gmail account of her, or her email account in general. And if you would like to schedule an advising any questions regarding education in the USA or need support, please feel free to schedule an individual advising with us. Thank you once again. Have a nice day and have a nice evening. The rest of the our audience who are joining from the Asia and from US, have a nice day. Thank you very much again. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.